The raging fire that on Sunday night consumed the National Museum in Rio, home to 20 million artifacts, has led to a profound national mourning in Brazil. But as Nick Schifrin reports, the loss of Latin America's largest collection of priceless treasures also sparked anger and recriminations.
All that's left of Latin America's largest natural history museum is smoldering debris. The burned-out shell of Rio de Janeiro's National Museum once held thousands of years of the region's and country's heritage. Today, the losses are irreplaceable and incalculable, and a country is in shock. A student sat in the burned museum's shadow, having lost his entire master's degree work. The historian Regina Dantas looked into a building where she'd worked for 30 years.
It seems like a nightmare. I went to sleep thinking it was a nightmare, that I was going to wake up.
She couldn't continue. She called the collection unrecoverable. The blaze started Sunday night and engulfed the museum. 80 firefighters battled for 6 hours, but nearby hydrants didn't work, and they failed to save a building where Brazil signed its independence from Portugal in 1822, and that was once home to Brazil's royal family.
I just saw a piece of my history, the house of the Brazilian Empire on fire, becoming destroyed. I see the history of my country becoming ashes. It has no price. I'm devastated.
Inside these walls were millions of artifacts. As seen in the old museum handout video, Latin America's preeminent collection of Egyptian mummies, including one from 750 BC and a statue from 1500 BC. Countless American indigenous artifacts, from masks to a 1,200-year-old funeral urn. The dinosaur Maxicalosaurus, whose excavation took 10 years. And 12,000-year-old Luzia, the oldest human remains found in the Americas, whose discovery challenged the basic understanding of how and when humans migrated. Today, museum workers managed to save some items, providing hope that more could be salvaged. And one of the world's largest meteorites, on display since 1888, survived. But the fire's aftermath matched the national mood, a symbol not only of sorrow, but also dissent. Thousands of residents stormed the museum gate. Police used pepper spray to keep them back. They marched through the streets and accused the government of negligence and losing countless royal artifacts, including from the family of João de Orleans and Bardemca.
It could have been avoided with a minimum cost, especially compared with the money thrown out by the Brazilian administration. Are there guilty people? Of course there are guilty people, and they must be punished.
This is symbolic of lots of problems Brazil is facing right now.
Paulo Sotero directs the Wilson Center's Brazil Institute and says the fire is a metaphor for a public sector that's failing to deliver.
People are angry for a variety of reasons in Brazil, including the state of the economy, the state of corruption and crime.
Just a few years ago, the country was hopeful and construction was booming. Rio hosted the Olympics and created big new plazas, fancy new apartment buildings with beautiful views of the Atlantic Ocean, and expanded public transit with new buses and trams. But today in Rio, violence has increased so much, the local government dispatched the military to secure massive slums, and masked, heavily armed policemen conduct operations. And corruption charges plague the highest office. Former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is in prison. Former President Dilma Rousseff was impeached. And current President Michel Temer stands accused not only of corruption, but also failing to fix core issues.
The country got itself into an illusion that it did not need to address its fundamental basic problems of economic management, of fiscal management to confront those issues.
And the museum failed to address its own deficiencies. According to local reports, it had no sprinklers, no fire doors, no smoke detectors. The government must do more, said museum director Alexander Kellner.
It's necessary for all the authorities that have the resources, specifically the federal government, to help the National Museum put its history back together. We've already lost part of our collection. Brazil can't lose its history.
But today it's that history that Brazil feels it lost. A Brazilian mother posted photos of her son, thrilled and in awe, during his last visit to the museum. Today that museum is largely gutted. It's a reminder, as the British Library put it today, how our shared global heritage is precious and fragile. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.